adopted just at the time when, in 2008, Ecuador Constituent Assembly was deliberating the new Ecuadorian constitution, which is now in place since 2008. And it says, nature is not mute. The world is painting still lives. Forests are dying, the poles are melting, the air is becoming unbreathable, and the water undrinkable. Flowers and food are becoming increasingly plastic, and the sky and earth are going absolutely insane. At the same time, a country in Latin America, Ecuador, is debating a new constitution that opens up the possibility for the first time ever of recognizing the rights of nature. Nature has a lot to say, and it has long been time for us, her children, to stop playing deaf. Maybe even God will hear the cry rising from this Andean country and add the 11th Amendment, which he left out when he handed down instructions from Mount Sinai. Love nature, which you are a part of. For thousands of years, almost all people had only the right not to have rights. In reality, quite a few remain without rights today, but at least now the right to have rights is recognized. And this is considerably more than a gesture of charity by masters of the world to comfort their servants. And nature, in a way, it could be said that human rights extend to nature because she is not a postcard meant to be viewed from afar. But nature knows full well that even the best human laws treat her as a piece of property, never as a holder of rights. Reduced to no more than the source of natural resources and good deals, she can legally be gravely wounded and even exterminated without her complaints being heard, and there is no law preventing those who harm her from acting with impunity. Most in the best cases, it is the human victims who can demand a more or less symbolic indemnity, and this will always come after the damage has been done, though the law neither prevents nor deters assaults on the earth, water, and air. It sounds odd, doesn't it, that nature could have rights? Sheer madness, as if nature was a person, and yet it sounds perfectly normal in the United States that major business take advantage of human rights. In 1886, the US Supreme Court, that model of universal justice, extended human rights to private corporations. They were recognized as having the same rights as people, the right to life, free expression, privacy, and all the rest, as if companies could breathe. More than 120 years have passed since then, and it is still the same. Nobody has paid attention to it. There is nothing odd or abnormal about the bill that would include the rights of nature in the Constitution of Ecuador. This country has suffered repeated devastation over its history. To give just one example, for more than a quarter of a century, until 1992, the Texaco Oil Company vomited 18,000 gallons of poison into the rivers, land, and the people. Once this gesture of beneficence in the Ecuadorian Amazon was completed, the company, which was born in Texas, was married to Standard Oil. By then, Rockefeller's Standard Oil had changed its name to Chevron and was being run by Condoleezza Rice. Afterwards, a pipeline carried Condoleezza to the White House, while the Chevron Texaco family continued to pollute the world. But the wounds cut into the body of Ecuador by Texaco and other companies are not the only source of inspiration for this great juridical innovation that some are trying to carry forward. Moreover, and this is equally important, the reivindication of nature is part of the process of recuperating some of the most ancient traditions of Ecuador and all of Latin America. The bill under consideration will have the state recognize and guarantee to vital natural cycles the right to continue and regenerate. It is not by chance that the Constituent Assembly started by identifying the objectives of national growth with the ideal of summa causai, which means harmonious life in Quechua. Harmony among people and between us and nature, which engender us, feeds us, shelter us, and which has her own life and values independent of us. These traditions remain miraculously alive despite the heavy legacy of racism, which in Ecuador, as in the rest of Americas, continues to mutilate reality and memory. And it isn't just the patrimony of its large indigenous population, which knew how to perpetuate them over the 5 centuries of prohibition and scorn. They belong to the whole country and the entire world, these voices from the past that helps us to divine another possible future. Since the days when the sword and the cross made their way into the Americas, the European conquest punished the adoration of nature, which was seen as the sin of idolatry, with the punishments of whipping, hanging, and burning. The communion between nature and people, a pagan custom, was abolished in the name of God and later in the name of civilization. Throughout the Americas and the world, we are paying the consequences of this divorce. That was Eduardo Galeano referring to the moment in 2008 when the new Ecuadorian constitution was being built. I just want to point out to a few elements of the Ecuadorian constitution that I think might be of interest. It is in fact the first constitution in the world to grant rights to nature. It's obviously the result of a long social struggle, years and years of the neoliberal era, as we call it in Ecuador. It is designed to leave the neoliberal model behind and replace it for a new concept, which is called the buen vivir, or the summa causai, the good living. It has the state as a regulator of the economic processes. Priority is given to social debt over external debt, what we call people over capital. It gives back the control of natural resources and strategic sectors to the people, to the state. It declares Ecuador as plurinational state for the first time, native languages recognized as official. It recognizes migration as human right as well, under the concept of universal citizenship. Ecuador is the first open doors country that doesn't require any visa to anybody to go and visit it.
Wow.
It declares Ecuador as territory of peace as well. We got rid in 2009 of a military US base in Ecuador, one of the biggest in Latin America. And it declares that no military bases are allowed, or no military troops, foreign military troops are allowed anymore in Ecuador. And other things like free state-run education up to university level, etc. Basically, the concept there is to change the paradigm from development to the good living under the reasoning that basically it's impossible to maintain the current patterns of accumulation. What must be measured is not GDP, but the living standards related to the satisfaction of human needs. It acknowledges that the human economy is dependent on nature. It admits that the economy is part of the broader structure, the ecosystem. And this is quite important because the debates comes exactly with this. This is not about keeping our natural heritage untouched or frozen in time, because it's an impossible task, but it is about protecting it at the adequate levels. So the Constitution obviously gives you the main principles from where the secondary legislation comes. I'm going to read the 2 articles that I think are relevant from the Constitution straight. Article 71 says nature or Pachamama, where life is reproduced and exists, has the right to exist, persist, maintain and regenerate its vital cycles, structure, functions and its processes in evolution. Every person, people, community or nationality will be able to demand the recognition of rights for nature before the public organisms. Article 73, the state will apply precaution and restriction measures in all the activities that lead to the extinction of species, the destruction of the ecosystems, or the permanent alteration of the natural cycles. The Constitution additionally bans genetically modified products. They are not allowed in Ecuador. It declares water as human right. You cannot privatize water in Ecuador. It bans also biopiracy. I think I will leave it like that. There are many achievements that Ecuador has made since then in order to protect the environment. Perhaps one that's worth mentioning is that Ecuador this year is achieving 94% of its electricity produced by clean energy, which is one of the cleanest energy matrices in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. That's so inspiring, both of you.